In September 1992, one investor made a trade so large and so successful that it permanently changed Britain's economic policy. His name was George Soros, and after a single day in financial history, newspapers began calling him the man who broke the Bank of England. But what actually happened? Did one trader really defeat a central bank? And how did a currency crisis become one of the most famous moments in financial history? To understand the story, we first need to look at Europe in the early 1990s. At the time, many European countries were part of a system called the Exchange Rate Mechanism, or ERM. The idea behind the ERM was simple. European currencies would stay within a fixed trading range against each other. This was meant to create stability and prepare Europe for deeper economic integration. In 1990, the United Kingdom joined the ERM. That meant the British pound had to remain within a specific range against the German Deutschmark. There was just one problem. Britain's economy was weakening, inflation was high, interest rates were painful, economic growth was slowing down. Meanwhile, Germany had the opposite situation. After German reunification, the German central bank raised interest rates aggressively to control inflation. That made the Deutsche Mark very strong, and because the pound was tied to it inside the ERM, Britain was forced to keep its currency artificially strong as well. Many economists believed the pound was simply overvalued, including George Soros. Soros managed the famous Quantum Fund, and by 1992, he and his team believed the British government would eventually be forced to devalue the pound or leave the ERM entirely. So Soros made an enormous trade against the British currency. In simple terms, he borrowed pounds and sold them, expecting their value to fall. This is known as shorting a currency, and he didn't do it with millions. He reportedly built positions worth more than $10 billion. At the time, it was one of the largest macro trades ever attempted. Other hedge funds and institutional investors began making similar bets. Pressure on the pound increased rapidly, and then came September the 16th, 1992, a day now remembered as Black Wednesday. On Black Wednesday, the Bank of England tried desperately to defend the pound. The government raised interest rates sharply. Officials also spent billions of pounds buying their own currency in the market. The goal was to stop the collapse, but the market pressure was simply too strong. Investors around the world kept selling pounds, and eventually Britain gave up. The UK withdrew from the ERM. The pound immediately dropped in value, and George Soros made an estimated profit of around $1 billion from the trade in just one day. The event was deeply embarrassing for the British government, but interestingly, many economists later argued that leaving the ERM actually helped the British economy recover in the years that followed. Lower interest rates supported growth, exports became more competitive, and Britain regained greater control over its monetary policy. So while Black Wednesday was initially seen as a disaster, history became more complicated over time. Black Wednesday became one of the defining moments in modern financial history. It showed that even central banks can struggle against global market forces, and it transformed George Soros into one of the most famous investors in the world. The phrase, "the man who broke the Bank of England," became permanently associated with him. The event has since appeared in documentaries, financial books, university courses, and economic case studies. It's frequently discussed in books about macro trading and hedge funds, including The Alchemy of Finance. The story is also often referenced in financial media whenever traders successfully challenge government policies or central banks. Even decades later, Black Wednesday is still studied by economists, investors, and political historians because it demonstrated something important. Markets are not controlled by confidence alone. Sometimes economic reality eventually wins. Today, Black Wednesday remains one of the most famous currency crises ever recorded, not only because of the money involved, but because it changed how governments, investors, and central banks think about currencies and financial markets. And it proved that a single trade, if large enough and correct enough, can influence the course of economic history.